Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to be here today and to have the opportunity to speak to the Connect community. You're all champions for neuroscience outreach and education, so I just want to thank you for all that you do to make neuroscience accessible and meaningful for people of all ages and backgrounds. So many of you may be familiar with the Dana Foundation as the founder of the Global Brain Awareness Week campaign. So I'm excited to be able to introduce you to the Foundation's mission more broadly and the work of the Dana Education Program. Dana Education is, of course, a potential source of funding for your neuroscience outreach and education initiatives, but we also want our grantees' work to become models that neuroscience educators and enthusiasts like yourselves can replicate and build upon within their own communities. I hope today's presentation will provide you with new ideas and helpful resources to further enrich your neuroscience education efforts. And I would actually be happy to share my slides with everyone so that you can access some of the links that I'm sharing throughout. So I'm going to begin with just a brief introduction to the Foundation's mission, vision, and values, and then the remainder of our session will focus on Dana Education, including the opportunity for you to hear from Diana Lee, one of our grantees. So the Dana Foundation is a private philanthropic organization based in New York City. Our mission is to advance neuroscience that benefits society and reflects the aspirations of all people. We explore the connections between neuroscience and society's challenges and opportunities, working to maximize the potential of the field to do good. Our vision is brain science for a better future. The Dana Foundation envisions a future when neuroscience is connected closely to the needs of everyone for the betterment of society. By listening and responding to people of all ages, backgrounds, and cultures, as well as professionals from other disciplines, the field will help improve the lives of individuals and communities. Neuroscience will be better understood and valued by the public, and a new generation of neuroscientists will be equipped to push the field into new frontiers. So Neuroscience and Society became our dedicated focus as of 2022. And Neuroscience and Society is the interdisciplinary study of how neuroscience informs and reflects society and the practical work to put these ideas into action. Neuroscience and Society is a human-centered neuroscience paradigm that connects brain research to real-world needs, values, and experiences. It brings together students, scientists, practitioners, and communities to reflect on assumptions, share expertise, and ensure that neuroscience serves people in meaningful and socially responsible ways. Or to put it more simply, Neuroscience and Society is a paradigm for how we can teach neuroscience to people, train them to do societally relevant neuroscience-focused work, and engage diverse communities of people to shepherd the development and application of neuroscience. The Dana Foundation is guided by a core set of values that connect us to a collective purpose, inform our work, and can be seen and felt in everything we do in pursuit of our mission. Our values are: we are bold, we build trust, we are collaborative, we value diversity, we lead with empathy, and we stay grounded. So the Foundation pursues its mission through grants and partnerships. Our grant making is organized around 3 programmatic pillars: Dana Education, Dana NextGen, and Dana Frontiers. So across these 3 program areas, we seek to strengthen the positive role neuroscience plays in the world by providing catalytic support for innovative approaches to neuroscience education, training, and public engagement. I encourage you to visit our website, dana.org, if you'd like to learn more about the Dana NextGen and Dana Frontiers programs. But I'd now like to turn our focus to Dana Education. So the goal of the Dana Education program is to strengthen neuroscience's positive role in the world by supporting education that empowers people to use neuroscience in their everyday lives through deeper understanding of the field's connections to people's needs, values, and experiences. And through our 3 programmatic objectives, we support informal education for people of all ages, formal and non-formal education for K-12 students, and professional education for judges and lawyers, healthcare providers, educators, and other professions where neuroscience may help inform and improve practice. And for those of you who may be interested in applying to Dana Education, I wanted to provide some guidance on what we're looking to fund. So Dana Education supports innovative neuroscience education projects that extend beyond teaching basic science concepts to explore the real-world applications of neuroscience. We seek to support comprehensive, sustained programming that teaches neuroscience through the lens of societal challenges and opportunities and empowers learners with the knowledge and skills to address them. Funded projects expose learners to the interdisciplinary nature of neuroscience, including connections to non-science disciplines such as ethics, law, policy, and the humanities. And we look for projects that will be accessible, adaptable, freely available, and designed to become models that others can replicate and build upon within their communities. Our goal is to enrich neuroscience education by fostering a vibrant educational ecosystem that invites diverse audiences to engage meaningfully with how neuroscience impacts their lives and their communities. So I'm now going to share a few examples of the work we're supporting across our 3 programmatic objectives, and that I hope will inspire you to incorporate our grantees' novel approaches for connecting neuroscience to society in your own work. So I'm going to begin with our first objective, which seeks to empower people of all ages to use neuroscience in their everyday lives by strengthening their knowledge of the field's real-world applications and ethical considerations through sustained informal education programs. And a wonderful example from our portfolio is the Brain Health Learning Network, which was a partnership between the University of Washington Department of Bioengineering and the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. The program offers a successful, portable model for how to reach an audience with the neuroscience information they need and want. So the Brain Health Learning Network is a community-driven, informal education program for older adults that aimed to help them become more knowledgeable about neuroscience and more confident in their ability to use this knowledge to make more informed decisions about their health and to convey their concerns to family, friends, and most importantly, to healthcare providers. The program included 13 expert-led lectures and discussions on topics ranging from memory and sleep to Parkinson's disease and nutrition. Each lecture was carefully curated to address common concerns and underexplored ideas in brain health, blending science, storytelling, and practical advice. But this program wasn't just about the lectures, it was about connection. Its success stemmed from community input, meticulous design, and a commitment to accessibility. Older adults were active participants in the program from the start, and they formed a community of learners who were encouraged to exchange ideas and perspectives and share their knowledge with others. The University of Washington and Osher began their work by holding focus groups with adults aged 50 and older to better understand the issues they were most concerned about. And the themes that came up repeatedly were concerns about memory loss, the role of lifestyle factors, interest in neurological conditions, and the need for reliable information. And their input became the foundation of the program's design, not just in the topics that were covered, but also in the delivery methods. Lectures were held both in person and online and recorded for later viewing to ensure accessibility. They included Q&As with the audience and were supplemented with additional resources such as links to clinical trials and fact sheets from trusted organizations. And the concern about finding reliable information actually prompted a special session on evaluating the validity of scientific claims, providing participants with tips and tools for verifying sources and identifying red flags in ads and other media. And the program was impactful. Pre- and post-lecture data collected through participant surveys showed a meaningful increase in knowledge across nearly every session. And for those of you who may be interested in replicating this model, I encourage you to visit the Brain Health Learning Network's website, which is linked to from this slide. You'll find all the lecture recordings there and links to the supplemental resources. And I also encourage you to read the impact story about the network on our website, which actually provides tips for getting a program like this started in your own community. And I've linked to this article in a later slide, which I'll get to. So next, I'm going to focus on our second education objective, which aims to engage K through 12 students in learning about neuroscience through structured education opportunities that integrate relevant real-world topics and issues to capture their interest and inspire continued study. And in K through 12 education, we're especially interested in supporting experiential learning opportunities for middle and high school students. We seek programs that are immersive, interdisciplinary, and incorporate hands-on activities, experimentation, and real-world applications of neuroscience, enabling students to build the scientific, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills needed to address pressing socioscientific issues. And I think an exciting and innovative example of this type of programming is Vanderbilt University's Students Are Scientists, an experiential learning program for high school students on the neuroscience of attention, learning, and memory, and how these cognitive processes may be impacted by smartphone use. So this program connects neuroscience to policy, and it employs pedagogical approaches that center students, highlight their autonomy and abilities, and engage them actively as both scientists and advocates for evidence-based technology policy in secondary schools. With so many states and school districts introducing policies and recommendations limiting smartphone use in the classroom, this program is addressing a timely and important issue impacting students' lives, as well as a critical need for research on the cognitive effects of smartphone use in adolescents. So the program is being piloted at the School for Science and Math at Vanderbilt, which is a partnership between Vanderbilt University and Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. Freshmen and sophomore students are participating in an inquiry-based curriculum that empowers them to contribute to neuroscience and to education policy by designing, implementing, and analyzing a cognitive experiment examining smartphone use in the classroom, and then presenting their findings to various audiences, including local officials. The curriculum includes lectures by policy experts, lessons and activities about civic engagement, and opportunities for students to participate in community action. The students are receiving instruction on different types of science communication and are practicing what they learned by presenting their research findings to public audiences during Brain Awareness Week, to the broader Vanderbilt community at a summer research symposium, and to Metropolitan Nashville school district leaders to help inform their policy decisions. Through this pilot, students are experiencing that they can be scientists and that their work in science is needed by contributing to society's understanding of a real-world issue that directly affects their lives. Vanderbilt is evaluating the impact of the curriculum on students' beliefs about civic engagement and their role in education policy, as well as their interest in neuroscience and other STEM careers. And this project is still in progress, but the evaluation results will be published, and the curriculum and student-generated experimental methods will be freely available on a project website for replication by other teachers, students, and scientists. The curriculum will be designed to be flexible and modular to maximize its accessibility and adaptability in various educational settings. And when it's available, I would actually be happy to share the final curriculum with the Connect community as a resource and a model for you to adopt in your own efforts. So our third and final education objective aims to facilitate greater understanding and informed decision-making among professionals by supporting new education approaches on neuroscience topics related to their practice. And we've been prioritizing a few different audiences in professional education, including judges and lawyers, mental health professionals, healthcare providers, and educators. And I'd first like to share about a continuing education program we're supporting at Marshall University for mental health professionals, in case any of your students or colleagues may be interested in or benefit from this program. And also, we think the comprehensive and engaging model that Marshall is developing will be adaptable to other professional audiences where increasing neuroscience literacy could help improve practice and outcomes. Marshall's Neuroscience Literacy in Mental Health project addresses a gap in education and training for master's level mental health professionals, which include counselors, social workers, and marriage and family therapists. As it turns out, most of these direct mental health professionals do not have neuroscience coursework in their training, and despite their optimism to do so, they feel ill-prepared to integrate neuroscience into their practice. Also, there are few interventions available to help them build their neuroscience literacy, and most of these opportunities lack the developmental sequence necessary to equip them with the knowledge and skills needed to translate neuroscience into the care of the people they serve. So with this project, Marshall is working to fill this gap by developing a professional education program that provides mental health workers with access to relevant and trustworthy content that goes beyond piecemeal continuing education offerings and leads to advanced credentialing. Marshall is shifting the traditional model of professional and continuing education, which is often passive in its approach to learning, to a dynamic learning community that promotes active learning and knowledge transfer. They're creating a new kind of continuing education sequence that awards the necessary contact hours and credits, but is bold enough to think differently about what is required to transfer knowledge to practice in an ethical and effective way. So over the course of 12 months, program participants engage in live virtual discussion-based webinars to obtain new knowledge and skills. All participants are also added to an online community of practice that provides an interactive platform for synchronous and asynchronous peer-to-peer learning that connects material from the webinars to real-world practice. These components will be formalized into a micro-credential that will be offered through the university. And Marshall is evaluating this program not only measuring changes in the neuroscience literacy of participants, but also how what they've learned is informing their clinical decision-making and impacting the people that they serve. And this project is also still in progress, but Marshall plans to share the findings with the broader mental health community so that this project could become a proof of concept model for professional development in the mental health field, and as I mentioned earlier, in other fields and professions as well. I encourage you to visit the website for this project, which I've linked to from this slide. You'll find the topics and learning objectives for each of the webinars, as well as a link to register for the program if anyone is interested. And again, I would be happy to share the outcomes from this project with the Connect community once the pilot implementation and evaluation are complete. So for the remainder of our session today, we're going to focus on professional development for educators. And I'm excited, as I mentioned, to be joined by Diana Lee, who will tell you about a wonderful and impactful program at the Zuckerman Institute called the Teacher Institute for Neuroscience and Society. And just to give you a little background, our priority in teacher professional development is to support programs that build educators' confidence and capacity to teach neuroscience in their classrooms using innovative approaches that connect neuroscience to students' lives, as well as to relevant societal issues and topics. These programs aim to not only strengthen teachers' neuroscience knowledge, but also enhance their skills in active and inquiry-based learning, as well as other student-centered teaching approaches. And by supporting projects that provide this kind of professional development for teachers, we're also bringing neuroscience to more classrooms, and we're amplifying our reach to students over time. So the Teacher Institute for Neuroscience Society, or TIFNAS, is a perfect example of this. I'm going to let Diana tell you much more about their model, but TIFNAS is a 4-day immersive workshop series for middle school educators that uses a train-the-trainer framework. The program equips educators with the knowledge, skills, and evidence-based lessons they need to facilitate discussions with their students on challenging topics at the intersection of neuroscience, ethics, and society. We've been supporting TIFNAS since 2023, and the program has been successful in increasing participants' confidence and self-efficacy in teaching neuroscience and society. And I hope that learning about their approach will be helpful for your own educator-focused programming. So before I turn things over to Diana, I'm going to very quickly share a few more slides with you with some helpful information and links. First, for those of you who may be interested in applying to the Dana Foundation for funding, we are currently accepting letters of interest for pilot projects in neuroscience and society for our fall decision-making cycle. The submission deadline is May 22nd. I've included links to our For Grant Seekers webpage that has additional information about what we do and do not fund. Our grants database, where you can find additional examples of the types of projects we're supporting, and our application portal, where you can actually create an account and submit an application. On this next slide, I've provided just some helpful links for you to learn more about the Foundation's Neuroscience and Society mission and the Dana Education Program. I've included the link to our resources database as well, where we post all of our grantee resources as they become available. So be sure to check that page periodically for any new materials. And there's also a link to subscribe to our monthly e-newsletter for updates on news, grants, and events. And finally, this slide provides links to 4 impact stories that feature the work of Dana Education grantees. Thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful. And I'll now pass the mic over to Diana to share more about TIFNAS.
So I'm really excited to share more of our work with the Connect Initiative community. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Kathleen, for this opportunity to even have something to talk about. So I'm super pleased to share some of our work on the Teacher Institute for Neuroscience and Society, which is, as Kathleen said, a 4-day professional learning program for middle school teachers at Columbia University's Zuckerman Institute in New York City. So I'll start with an overview of the Zuckerman Institute itself and our public engagement programs. Then I'm going to share our program model for the Teacher Institute with some examples of what our teachers experienced and created. And I'll have some data showing the program's impact, and then invite you to think about how this program model might inspire you. So let's get started. Okay, great. So the Zuckerman Institute is Columbia's Neuroscience Research Institute, and our goal is to unlock the fundamental principles of the brain. So we have over 800 people coming together from 18 departments across Columbia University to do just this. And I work on the public programs team, where we share the science that comes out of the Institute with everyone in the public through year-round programs. And we are located in New York City at Columbia's Manhattanville campus in a building called the Jerome L. Green Science Center. And at the Zuckerman Institute, our hub is the Education Lab. So I've shown some beautiful photos of this really dynamic space on this slide. And we work in partnership with our local communities to create science experiences for everyone. So our public programs engage families, students, teachers, and community partners, and especially those nearby in Harlem, Upper Manhattan, and South Bronx neighborhoods. So what you're seeing here looks like a blank slide, but I'm going to kind of reveal a bunch of things. And it's going to show you our public programs ecosystem. And this is how we think about building pathways into science, from early curiosity all the way through careers. So we start by nurturing curiosity through programs like Saturday Science, which are free, informal experiences designed to welcome families and young learners into the field. And then from there, we build skills through programs like Brainiac, where high school students earn a stipend and receive hands-on research training and mentorship from neuroscientists on campus. And we also train teachers, as Kathleen has already introduced, and we do this through many ways. And first, through professional learning workshops, such as our Teacher Scholar program. And then we engage broader audiences through our Brain Insight lectures, which are free public conversations that make cutting-edge neuroscience accessible and relevant to everyone's everyday life. So learning is happening at multiple levels. And at the same time, this work is grounded in partnership and genuine collaboration. So we collaborate with local community organizations and create programs like Breakout Science and Art in the Education Lab that integrate science with culture and creativity. So importantly, our scientists, are actively engaged in this process as mentors, as speakers, and role models throughout all of our programs. So rather than a single entry point, we're building multiple pathways into science, reaching people at different stages of life. And we shape our programs by their needs and interests. So we think dynamically about the ingredients of our public engagement programs, and we try to adapt as needs change. And specifically, in 2021, we realized that there were some gaps in our teacher professional learning opportunities, and saw that they were high barrier, meaning teachers had to apply and then commit to a whole school year with us. And we were doing a great job attracting, super dedicated, neuroscience interested high school teachers who had the time and bandwidth to do this. But then we wondered, what about those equally dedicated and passionate teachers who don't have that bandwidth? or maybe the ones who teach younger grades. So since then, we have added 2 more teacher professional learning programs. In addition to the Teacher Scholar program, we have now the Brainstem in Action program. It's just a one-day program for middle and high school teachers on a day that New York City Public Schools already designated as Teacher Professional Development Day. And then most recently, we added the Teacher Institute for Neuroscience and Society for middle school teachers, and I'm going to talk about that in detail today. So we get a lot of emails from people interested in our programs, and recently we've noticed like a lot of people asking for middle school teacher programs, and they were already kind of trying to apply to our high school teacher programs. So we were like, there's a clear need for this. So with the Teacher Institute, we felt it was very important to motivate the work in 3 ways. We wanted to strengthen approaches that combine neuroscience with current events at the 6th through 8th grade level, so that we could better support critical thinking and group discussion skills for kids before they get to 9th grade, before they enter high school. And this was our attempt to try to reduce the well-documented STEM achievement gap in under-resourced schools, where the effects can be seen as early as elementary school. Plus, middle school is an interesting age. It's when kids start to refine their interests and learn to like thoughtfully interrogate the world around them, and it's a key stage in cognitive and emotional development. So it makes total sense to start introducing neuroscience into topics that are relevant to 6th and through 8th grade lives. So the Teacher Institute for Neuroscience Society was born. Our goal, as Kathleen said, was to empower middle school educators in their teaching of multifaceted topics at the intersection of neuroscience, ethics, and society with greater knowledge, skill, and confidence. So we brought together cohorts of 12 to 24 Teacher Institute fellows who had to apply for the program still, but they just had to commit to 4 workshops that were kind of offered in a clump, and then to attend at least 1 summit, and I'll describe what that is in a moment. They earned a stipend, they earned continuing education credits for New York State, and they learned about topics at the intersection of neuroscience and society. So for that, we had like neurodiversity, AI in education, social media was big, we linked that with screen time and the developing adolescent brain. And through these train the trainer workshops, they gained activity ideas, discussion protocols, and middle school appropriate resources where they kind of like emulated the student experience together. We had them create at least 1 project or lesson to implement during that school year. So it was an ambitious ask, but we support them in doing that. And through the program, they were able to talk with Columbia scientists, and after we had enough cohorts, to Teacher Institute alums to understand more closely active research related to the topic, and then see how other teachers just like them brought workshop content into the classroom. And that was super helpful because we reconvened them all for a summit where they would share out what it was like to implement their lessons, and they could show student work or simply share challenges faced to try to crowdsource support and ideas. So I'm gonna show you the front of house experience for participants and also back of house experience, like how our staff put this together, so that you might be inspired to replicate some parts of this at your institution. So before we got participants, we needed a team. And here's the team. It looks big and intimidating, but I've separated them so you could see the full-timers on our Zuckerman Institute program staff in blue and our part-timers in orange. And this is just to show how we brought in specialized knowledge that we realized our staff didn't already have. So then we could actually make a successful program, because us full-timers in the blue, we have expertise in how to create audience-centered programs. We had scientific content expertise, and we could do facilitation. So we did all the initial brainstorming. But once it was time to build out those details, that's where we needed our assistant facilitators. So that's Pooja, Varithia, and Preeti. They were all teachers. So I could have big ideas of what I thought the workshop would be, but they would bring me back down to earth to be like, Dinah, we have to keep this directly usable in the classroom. So they ensured what we actually offered was extremely relevant. And I think that was the like magic sauce that made this program so successful. And we also had an external evaluator, Paula, And that was key too, because then our participants could speak freely to her about their feedback and not have to awkwardly tell it to me, but I'm like also facilitating. And then we also had Maya and Zoya, who are our undergrad interns, who helped just finalize and standardize those lesson plans so that we could soon share them with anyone to use. So I'm about to dive into now some program mechanics and the participant experience. So we launched in 2024, and we have since offered the program 4 times. And I'm showing our first pilot cycle here in this first part of the table. So we ran 4 sessions initially over 4 weekdays in a row. So it was kind of a lot. And we had 12 teachers over summer break in July and during February, whereas New York City has like a midwinter break during that week. So teachers were off from school. We gave them $1,000 and covered multiple topics across those days. And we advertised just kind of unglamorously through email, but leveraged networks and newsletters that we were part of and did a bit of social media. But you can see in the table, it was difficult to get a large pool of eligible applicants. If we were aiming for 12, we barely scraped by. I mean, we got high quality, amazing people, and I was like, there's got to be more people just like them. And we even had to like individually kind of not bully teachers, but my assistant facilitator was like, yeah, we need to get these numbers. Here are the people I think will be really promising. That's how we met those numbers. So we regrouped after that first cycle and thought, what if we changed up the structure? 4 days in a row during a break is asking a lot. It's asking people to give up a lot of their time, especially if they're really busy during the school year and just want to recoup in a break. So we were like, what if we just split it up to weekday evenings? So the second pilot cycle, we did it like weekday evenings, like 1 week a day a week for 4 weeks and just focusing on one topic. And this was just during the school year. So you just join us for an evening. We'd feed you and nourish you also with intellectual content. And we were like, okay, if it's more accessible this way, let's aim big and try to get a cohort size of 24, which we didn't quite reach in October. But the applicant pool did grow, so we thought that was promising. And then amazingly, we ran it again last month, and we had people trying to like, I don't know, kick down the door to come in, like lots of applicants. And what I noticed was just word of mouth was making a big difference. The program was around long enough. And people, I was surprised how many people said their principals actually forwarded the emails to the staff. So there's something going on where people are knowing about this. And we also like had people say you could come back, bring a buddy, we'd give you an extra bonus on your stipend. That brought some people in. So I think it's going well, and I'm really excited to see how it grows when we offer it again in the fall. So after workshops conclude, our assistant facilitator keeps checking in with people because it's hard to hold people accountable to implement a lesson, but if we give them the support, we hope that it makes a difference because then they come back for that summit where we try to draw back as many of them as possible to keep building that community and share out their work. So I'm going to show you just a preview of like some of these train the trainer activities, capstones, and protocols that allow teachers to emulate the student experience with us in the workshops. So I'm going to just kind of go right into our first activity example. So this is one we did in October. This is when we did AI as our topic. And it was brought to us by an alum of our program, Huan Wang. He teaches middle school computer science. And it's a game where students play the parts of an artificial neural network. So it became chaotic even with adults. And I'm sure it's chaotic with kids, and that's always fun. So basically, it's like a fancy game of telephone. And each kid is like a node in the network. And if you put them like in a diagram, you have like nodes in an input layer talking to nodes in a hidden layer, and then they talk to a node in an output layer who's going to do the goal of the program, of the activity, which is to generate a caption for an image. So here's kind of what would happen. The input layer gets to look at a secret image and write down a word to describe it on each of 4 note cards, pass the note cards to each node in the hidden layer. And this is what they got. So you can look at this image. I'm gonna look at it on my other screen. It says input nodes, here's your image, describe in 4 words. Write them down. and then they can't talk to each other. So you can see how you might pick some words for this image. The hidden layer will now do a filter. They're going to take all the 4 note cards they got from the different input layer nodes and then select the 2 that they think represents the image that they have not seen, because only the input layer has seen the image. And then they give the 2 note cards they pick to the output layer, who has to do their best to come up with a sentence to be a predicted caption. And again, the output layer has also not seen the secret image. So I'm going to show you what Juan's class did with this, which is classic middle school thinking. So we have, this is the image. I would describe it as dog skateboarding on street. They came up with a dog getting run over. But you can see what happened, like when the input layer saw the hidden image, they noticed dog. They all wrote down dog, they all wrote down street. Not everyone wrote down skateboard, and actually, because there's cars in the image, they were like, oh, there's cars. They wrote down vehicle. And so then the hidden layer filters these note cards. They haven't seen the image. They just filter out skateboard. It wasn't really there, that frequently. And then the output layer had no clue there was a skateboard and does the best and comes up with dog getting run over. So it was an interesting exercise to see like how AI can make mistakes that misrepresent things and get students talking about what that might mean for them. And our teachers had a lot of fun with this activity as well. So in addition to activities, we also kind of dig deeper through things we call capstones. And they allow teachers to not only devise and try out the activities, but also create the space for peer feedback so that teachers can suggest student scaffolds to each other. Maybe they notice tie-ins with the required units. And they're always great at coming up with ways to make the activity relevant for different student populations. We have a mix of general ed, special ed, and self-contained course teachers, and they're all talking to each other, sharing their knowledge. So this is an example from our social media topic where we talked about like screen time and brain development. So we had teachers create PSAs. I love when teachers do a hand-drawn thing. So I'm going to show you like a example where I zoomed into that. So they have Rebecca real life on the left and Sally social media on the right. And Rebecca real life looks like she's having a good time, very calm, healthy. And Sally social media is stuck in a vortex of like digital doom, looking for dopamine hits. So that was an example they came up with as something they might show their students to inspire their students to create a PSA for either their peers or for maybe older students like high schoolers or even their parents. If it's for their peers, some teachers came up with these examples using words that I had to look up because they're Gen Alpha terms. So Roblox is chuggy and basic. It's better to flex Y2K ways to chill with your squad instead, no cap. And sleep is cool, it's a vibe, and some questions asking about healthy sleep habits to get students to reflect. I think the spoiler alert for this is that we had to really scaffold what even is a PSA because it's kind of a dated thing, but that was a rich discussion when it came to the capstone. And then finally, I'm going to show you some example protocols. So these can be applied to any topic and tailored to different student populations. And this is where the assistant facilitators were key because they use these in the classroom. They know how to tailor them. And it's something you can use for any type of content. So we did a lot of readings and my assistant facilitator, Preeti, came up with these reading discussion protocols. And I'm showing an example, one called Modified 4As, where students choose an A to respond to while pointing to a quote from a reading to explore assumptions, agreement, argument, or action. And this was really great for our teachers to experience because they all know how daunting it can feel if you're like 11 years old trying to figure out how to be part of a whole class discussion, because this provides a way for like all students to participate and then practice jumping in more impromptu. We also modeled something called rumors when it comes to debriefing and synthesizing learning. It gets folks moving and talking. So you would write an answer on a Post-it in response to a question. You stand up, find a partner, tell them your answer, listen to their answer, exchange Post-its, and then repeat. So then you're kind of passing Post-its around the room, and this is the rumor that spreads, and it's a lot of fun. And the final part, after these workshops was the summit. This was a really new idea for us. We haven't had something like this for any of our other teacher programs where we bring people back to share out what they had done after the workshops, because sometimes people get a lot out of the workshop and they never see what happens. And it's really great also for us to see, and adds that layer of accountability. So, we're in the process of building out and standardizing lesson plan ideas that the teachers shared back with us through the summit. And I have some quotes from teachers who came, and one said, "It was great to hear everyone's lessons. I was taking notes. All right, what are things I want to try?" And then another who led a debate for her students said it was the first time that she had kids doing a debate on AI like that, and she was really surprised with their passion and their ability for public speaking because they have autism. So sometimes they're more reserved. So the fact that they were able to be confident in that was awesome. So people are bringing stuff directly into the class, and it seems to be having an impact. And we can assess that. So behind the scenes, our evaluator was assessing impact through surveys and interviews. 34 of the 58 Teacher Institute fellows participated in our program eval, and we assessed their confidence in teaching neuroscience and society topics, their socio-emotional learning, and their perceptions of the program. And so here's what we did before the program. We consented them into the study, and then had them complete pre-program and demographic surveys. And during the workshops, they responded to just daily reflection tickets, exit tickets to capture quick feedback. And then we also did interviews on the last day. And then they did a post-program survey to look at immediate effects of the program. And then eventually, months later at the summit, we tried to look at longer effects through more interview and survey. So I'm just showing pre-post survey data real quick here to get you excited about the impact so far. So when we look at confidence of teaching neuroscience and society topics, we see a significant increase. It passed the statistical tests. And here we ask teachers to rate how much they agree 1 to 5, pre-workshop in blue, and post-workshop in red. Sentences like, "I feel confident moderating student conversation about multifaceted topics," or incorporating new and emerging topics, or even like knowing where to find age-appropriate resources for themselves or me as a teacher. And we see greater agreement with these statements of confidence post-workshop across all measures, which was really exciting. And in particular, we saw confidence increase in how teachers view themselves. So this teacher shared, "As someone who's super curious, I want to know everything, answers to everything. I think in the student perspective, oh, you don't know? You're the science teacher. I don't know." And sometimes scientists don't know either, and that's okay. When it comes to helping students with their own self-confidence, that's something that came up too. The teacher says, "I'm hoping to build some self-esteem in my students because a lot of them tend to give up very easily. And we want to help them develop regulation skills, problem-solving skills, and to work around the challenges." And finally, and we saw this impact also classroom implementation. This person came in thinking they didn't know much about neuroscience until they got here. And I was like, okay, maybe I know a little bit. And now it inspired me to implement much more in my classroom. So when we look at now teachers' socio-emotional learning, we see that they underwent their own socio-emotional learning. They became more aware of aspects that they weren't before. We saw shifts in how they perceive themselves personally and also professionally as an educator. And simply put, someone thought that this program was eye-opening, and it made me more aware of the way adolescents are. And this one was in response to something from a scientist panelist. Dr. Crawford said something that addressed common pushback that teachers hear about accommodating neurodiversity, which is, "Oh, this won't prepare them for the real world." And she said something that stuck with me this whole week, that the world is going to teach them how to be hard, but we need to teach them how to be kind. And that kind of philosophy was really thought-provoking, made me reflect on my own practice, like some of the choices I make in my classroom. And finally, we measured the perceived importance of teaching neuroscience and society topics. So we saw just a slight increase. It was not statistically significant at this sample size. Um, well, good news, we didn't see a decrease. So, when teachers are admitted to the program, we choose them. So we're likely already selecting for people who think that this is important. But I view this as like the the perceived importance is affirmed through the program. It stays high. And we see quotes like, I would like to create a mini unit on something like AI. So students are prepared for the things they encounter. It's an important time to prepare students for how they're going to interact with the world. Another one told us a little more bluntly, there are things yesterday I'm going to talk to my principal about. I think it could be applied to my school. And I think this example is my favorite because one class had their students write letters to their policymaker based on research they learned in our workshops. The research was about how reading comprehension is affected by whether the words are printed on paper or displayed on a screen. And so this student asks that kids be given a choice of paper or computer for New York State tests because they're currently digital. So, this is going beyond the classroom, and I think that's really powerful. So, to conclude, the Teacher Institute for Neuroscience and Society in itself, I believe, is a very successful program, and I'm hoping you're seeing that it also provides a replicable program model for public engagement. So our goal was to empower middle school educators to teach multifaceted topics at the intersection of neuroscience, ethics, and society with greater knowledge, skill, and confidence. And we did this through a train the trainer approach, pairing middle school relevant topics with a capstone for the teachers. Co-facilitating and creating the content of our program with an actual teacher was extremely important. And then reconvening alums at summits built accountability and provided a space for teachers to continue fostering community. Also, like, just paying and feeding people is always a good idea, and that seemed to be a draw as well. We found that after the workshops, teachers reported increased confidence in teaching neuroscience and society topics. They underwent their own socio-emotional learning, and these workshops affirmed the importance of teaching such topics. So I hope you see how we use this program model to successfully meet teachers where they are and provide access to what they need to deepen their practice. So I want to leave you with this, simple call to action was just to consider a few things. What public engagement gaps exist at your institution? And what expertise, resources, or connections already exist that you could use in a new way? And how has this program model inspired you? So really quick, this is a lot of just information, and I'm happy to share the links, or we can just put the link to our website in the chat. But visit us soon. If you're in New York, we have a lot of upcoming programs, and the blue links are to just our April programs. Our Teacher Institute will recruit again in end of this school year for October. But if you scan that QR code, it takes you to our program webpage. You can see everything, and we also have ways you can engage online as well. So thank you, Connect Community. Thank you, Kathleen. And thank you to the rest of my team, my funders and partners. And I know my parents joined this call, so hi.